got my cartoon shirt on, got myself a calculator. Let's do this. Hello, and welcome to Dimension Bros. Today, we are going to be talking about one of my childhood favorites, Phineas and Ferb. If you've never watched Phineas and Ferb, A, get on that, what are you doing? B, I guess I could slightly summarize it here. Basically, the concept of Phineas and Ferb is these two brothers, Phineas and Ferb, spend every day of their summer doing something. Whether it's building a roller coaster, time traveling, stuff like that. The whole, like, moral of the show, I guess, is you have to seize the day, kinda. So there's a whole episode about that. But yeah, the show is very formulaic, like, to the point where there are, like, lines that are said in every single episode. But what makes the show cool is that it's constantly breaking that formula and pushing it to its extremes, and that's one of the main reasons it's so liked. But today, I want to talk about a big mystery of this show. The opening line of the title sequence declares that there are 104 days of summer vacation. Now, to start off, that is a very big number for a summer vacation. Like, that's crazy. Because a normal summer vacation is like, tops like 90, 80 some days. But no, they have a 104 day long summer vacation. But here's the problem. Every episode is split into two segments. Well, most of them. Like I said, there are some that aren't. But most episodes are split into two segments. And each of those segments takes place over a full day. In every segment, we see them from the start of the day to coming up with the idea to the end of the day when the idea mysteriously vanishes. Again, if you haven't seen Phineas and Ferb, you're going to be very confused in this video, because I'm not going to give context for much things. But let's just say every episode starts with them coming up with the idea, and by the end of the day, whatever they created is gone, and that's it. That's how the series goes. So here's the problem with these segments. There are far more than 104. How many, you may be asking? Well, let's quickly run the numbers, shall we? On Disney Plus, the amount of individual segments per season are 47 for the first season, 65 for the second season, 62 for the third season, and 49 for the fourth season. Keep in mind, the fourth season includes the Star Wars and Marvel special, even though they're all still listed separately. And also, you have to keep in mind some things like the 2-episode event, Where's Perry, is only being counted as one segment. That is one self-contained story, even though it is 2 episodes long. So together, that equals 223 segments. So already we are far above our 104 limit. But we also have to add on 2 movies and the Milo Murphy's Law crossover, giving us 226 total days of this summer. Now that's a lot. Far more than 104. But I got thinking about this number, and I realized a lot of the episodes just don't take place during the summer. There are Christmas specials, there's a Halloween special. There are some episodes that take place in different time periods and thus aren't canon to this summer. So I thought, would it be possible to figure out
how long their summer is?
And if it is, we did it here today. I went through every episode of Phineas and Ferb. I didn't watch them all. I read through them all, jogging my memory a bit. I watched this show a ton as a kid, so most episodes I could probably describe the plot to you. But I went through and wrote down every one that I thought might give us a chance of getting us down closer to that 104. I'm just going to be upfront with you now. We're not going to get to 104 today, because we are over double away from 104. There's no way to get this all the way down to 104. But we want to see how close we can get to 104. So let's go through the episodes that I think give us a chance. Hey, I'm about to list every single episode that I'm going to then spend the next, 20 minutes of the video talking about. So I'm just going to speed up me discussing the episodes. I'm like listing off the episodes I'm going to talk about, since you're going to hear me talk about each one anyway. The episodes I think might be able to get us closer to 104 are
One Good Scare Ought to Do It, Phineas and Ferb Get Busted, The Monster of Phineas and Ferbenstein, Unfair Science Fair, Unfair Science Fair Redux, Phineas and Ferb's Musical Cliptastic Countdown, Bubble Boys / Isabella and the Temple of Sap, Phineas and Ferb Christmas Vacation, Wizard of Odd, Phineas and Ferb Hawaiian Vacation, Summer Belongs to You, Tri-Stone Area / Doof Dynasty, That's the Spirit, A Phineas and Ferb Christmas Special / Swinter, Excalibur, Phineas and Ferb in the Temple of Juktagadun, When Worlds Collide, Where's Perry, What Did I Miss, D-Day / B Story, Terrifying Tri-State Trilogy of Terror, Doof 101, Act Your Age, Tales from the Resistance, The Star Wars Special, and The Alka Files.
I think if we look at those, we should be able to figure out which ones of those could get us lower, could get us closer. I don't think I'm explaining this particularly well, but I promise it'll make sense as I start going through these. One other note, the ones I was saying slashes are both part of the same episode. For example, Unfair Science Fair and Unfair Science Fair Redux are both two segments from the same episode. And that's important, and we'll get to why in a couple minutes. But let's now start going through the list of Phineas and Ferb episodes, starting with Season 1. The first episode in Season 1 I want to talk about is Episode 9, One Good Scare Ought to Do It. I remember that this is the Haunted House episode, so I was hopeful this took place on Halloween and thus would subtract 1 from the count. It does not, because it actually takes place during the summer. Isabella has hiccups, so they build her a haunted house to scare them out of her. So that does not affect the count. Next one is episode 16, Phineas and Ferb Get Busted. If you haven't seen this episode, go watch it, because I'm about to spoil the twist at the end. But in the end, it ends up being a dream inside a dream, as Perry was dreaming Candace's dream. Yeah. So Perry ends up waking up. It turns out the entire episode was his dream, meaning it takes place at night, meaning it could take place during the night of another episode. So we're going to assume it does, because we're trying to get this count as low as possible. So if that holds true, then we can remove 1 day from the count. Next episode is episode 22, The Monster of Phineas and Ferbenstein. Now, I remember that this was the story of Frankenstein's monster, but with Phineas and Ferb playing the 2 leads. I assume this was just one of Phineas and Ferb's, traditional, out of canon episodes, but no, it's actually their grandparents talking about one of their ancestors. So it does, and that takes up a summer because it's a rainy day. The boys are sad they can't go outside, so the grandparents tell this story. So that does take up a day in the summer and thus doesn't affect the count. The last episode in season 1 I want to talk about is episode 23, Unfair Science Fair / Unfair Science Fair Redux. Now, this is the first of, I think, 3 episodes that both segments take place on the same day, and thus we can subtract 1 for it, because currently we're counting that day twice. So our total reduction from the count for season 1 is 2. We have removed 2 out of the 226 days. Great. Let's move on to season 2, because we're not making it far past. First episode I want to talk about in season 2 is episode 11, Phineas and Ferb's Musical Cliptastic Countdown. It's just a clip show. Yes, the clip show kind of has a plot, but it's not, they're directly referring to the audience constantly, and it's just a clip show. It doesn't take up a day in the canon. It's a really fun clip show, but it's just a clip show. So that's minus 1 day. That's 1 less. Next one is episode 16, Bubble Boys / Isabella and the Temple of Sap. Once again, this is another example of the episodes taking place on the same day. On one episode, Phineas and Ferb are making giant bubbles for them and their friends to float around in. On the other, Isabella is going to get sap to help make these bubbles. And the entire second thing is her getting the sap. So, once again, 1 day, meaning minus 1 on the count. Next is episode 22, Phineas and Ferb's Christmas Vacation. This one, unlike some of the other holiday specials, actually takes place on Christmas. So, yeah, that takes away from the count because that is 1 episode that does not take place during the summer. Next one is episode 26, The Wizard of Odd. Now, I remembered going in that this episode was a dream, so I thought we were going to be able to apply the same logic as we did for Phineas and Ferb Got Busted. Sadly, though, the dream does take place during the day. Candace gets knocked out by a hose, and then when she wakes up, we see Phineas and Ferb on a giant unicycle, which presumably was their day's project, meaning that episode still counts as one day. Next one is episode 34, Phineas and Ferb's Hawaiian Vacation. Now, I assumed that this episode would only be one day, because typically when it shares one title, it's one segment, but this is actually two segments that just both take place in Hawaii. So that's 2 days, meaning we actually have to add one to the count, which is really annoying. Next is a two-part special, both episode 37 and 38, Summer Belongs to You. In this episode, Phineas and Ferb travel all the way around the Earth, leaving at the sunrise of one day and not getting in there until the sunset of another day. Meaning this episode takes place over 2 days, meaning we have to add another to the count. Meaning in total, in season 2, we have subtracted 1. Meaning in total between season 1 and 2, we have only subtracted 3. We have subtracted 3 days. When I went into this, when I first came up with the idea for this video, I'm like, oh, we're totally going to get it down to 104. I did not really realize the magnitude of Phineas and Ferb content that existed. But yeah, so far we have subtracted 3 from the list. Speaking of 3, let's get on to season 3. First episode in season 3 I want to talk about is episode 8, Tri-Stone Area / Doof Dynasty. Now, both of these segments take place in alternate timelines in which the Phineas and Ferb characters live in, I believe, ancient China and I think caveman time. Which means we get to subtract 2 from the count. That's cool. So immediately we're already almost doing better than season 1 and 2 combined. The next episode is episode 14, That's the Spirit. Now this is only the first segment of this 2-episode thing. We still have to count the second one. But the first one, That's Just the Spirit, takes place on Halloween. They are trick-or-treating in this episode, meaning we can subtract 1 from the count because Halloween's not during the summer. Next one is episode 17, A Phineas and Ferb Christmas Special and Swinter. In the first segment, they have a Christmas special, even though it's the middle of summer. And then the second segment, they make their backyard a winter wonderland, even though it's the middle of summer. So even though these are both very winter-heavy, plots, that's kind of the whole joke. That they take place during the summer, meaning we don't change the count at all. Next is episode 20, Excalifurb. I'm gonna stretch slightly with this one, but I need some negatives for this video to work at all. I need to get the count down at least slightly. So for Excalifurb, the entire episode is Carl reading Major Monogram a story. So that does take up the day, but in that episode we never see Phineas and Ferb. So hypothetically, Phineas and Ferb could still be off doing a different episode's antics. This could just be an example of us seeing someone else's perspective. We're just seeing across town, when in reality this is the Ant Farm episode. I don't know. Doesn't matter which one. Whatever episode we don't see Major Monogram in. There's got to be at least one we never see Major Monogram in. Whatever that one is, go find that for me. So -1 from the count. Next one is Phineas and Ferb and the Temple of Jachidun. This is the second segment of the episode that it's part of episode 22. This, like episode 8, is another just sticking the characters in a different time period, except in this one, they are explorers in 1914. Phineas and Ferb is a weird show, but yeah, since it takes place in 1914, we're not counting it, meaning -1 from the count. Woo! Episode 31 of season 3, When Worlds Collide, that's the first segment, takes place in night, after season 3, episode 21, Giants. And we know this because Candace directly says, I think her and the mom, Linda, are having a conversation about how she's tried to bust them twice today, and that earlier that day had been the ant farm, which happened in Giants. Meaning that 2 things. 1, we get to subtract 1 from the count, which we love. But then also, the Phineas and Ferb episodes don't take place in the order they were released, because Giants was released quite a bit before When Worlds Collide, even though When Worlds Collide takes place the same day as Giants, just during the night. Now I kind of want to do a video where I'm trying to figure out the proper order of Phineas and Ferb episodes, but I have a feeling there's not much to work off of there. Next is another 2-parter, Where's Perry? This one really scared me because I knew it was their, vacation to Africa, and I was worried that it was, a week. But I looked through this whole episode, and at least to my knowledge, there is no there's no time in the episode where it jumps for a day. The entire episode takes place over one day. So, like, mentally, I know, obviously, like, their vacation would be longer than a day, but it never shows them being there for longer than a day. And that's what matters. Since they're only shown in Africa for one day, we're assuming their vacation was also only one day long, and thus, we're not changing the count at all. Last episode of Season 3, kind of a sad way to end Season 3, because we got quite a bit of negatives, which is good in this case. Is episode 34, What Did I Miss? Which is the second segment of the episode it's a part of. So in this episode, the boys recap what they did the previous day to Candace, meaning this episode actually encompasses 2 days. The day prior where they train squirrels, and then the day that the episode takes place where they tell Candace about them training squirrels, meaning we do have to add +1 to the count, which is sad. But that's just how the cookie crumbles. That means for the entirety of Season 3, we got a total of -5, which is good. It could have been -6 if stupid What Did I Miss didn't happen. Okay, let's go on to Season 4. Let's hope that Season 4 removes, 100 days. To finish this off, let's go through Season 4. First is Episode 5, B Story / B Day. This is once again 2 perspectives, and once again it's the Fireside Girls on one and Phineas and Ferb on the other, -1. Episode 18 is Terrifying Tri-State Trilogy of Terror. These are 3 stories told by a one-time character, Mr. Macabre. And he's just directly telling these 3 stories to the audience. They're stories about the tri-state area, but they're not canon because Phineas and Ferb die in them. I don't think that's canon. But yeah, that's -1 from the count. Woo! The first segment of episode 21 is Doof 101, which takes place after the summer on the first day of school, in which Doof is forced to do teaching as a community service thing, since he is a criminal. So yeah, it takes place on the first day of school, thus outside summer, thus it's -1, not counted. Episode 26 is Act Your Age. It takes place, I believe 10 years after Phineas and Ferb, meaning it doesn't count to the original summer, obviously, so -1. Episode 23 is Tales from the Resistance. Ignore the fact I swapped episode 23 and 26 for some reason, but episode 23 is Tales from the Resistance, which takes place in the alternate dimension scene in Phineas and Ferb to the second dimension, I believe. So because of that, it's not counted, because obviously things could be happening in the main dimension that we've already seen whilst things are happening in the second dimension, meaning we don't need to count it. So yeah, -1. Next is episode 31 and 32, the Star Wars special, which obviously takes place in the Star Wars universe, unless we don't have to count it. -1. And lastly, the last one I want to talk about actually came out after the final episode of Phineas and Ferb, the Alka Files, which, as it came out after the last episode of Phineas and Ferb, also takes place after the last episode of Phineas and Ferb, meaning we don't have to count it. -1. Now that we're done with Season 4, which, by the way, got 7 minuses, not a single plus. This is why Season 4 is my favorite. It got the most negatives. Before we get to, the final total, I'd just like to comment that the 2 Phineas and Ferb movies both take place over one day, so we won't be affecting the count with those 2. But Milo's Murphy Law, the entire show, takes place during the school year, presumably directly after Phineas and Ferb, though we don't really know. But because of that, we don't have to count the Phineas and Ferb effect to the summer. So now, to finish this whole thing off, we've got quite a few negatives, we've got quite a few positives, so what is the total? How long is Phineas and Ferb's summer? I've got my calculator here. We're gonna type in minus for each season, and there it is. The total is 212. I just showed the calculator to the camera, which revealed I actually typed nothing into this. I already had the value on my computer over here. Shh, don't ruin the magic. 212, which I actually did not write this down. Let's see how far that is from 104. 212 minus 104. That is 108 days. We are more than double what Phineas and Ferb claims. Now, my dad, when I was talking about this script to him, because he came down and was watching me just watch Phineas and Ferb, which I don't think is a normal thing for you to walk down seeing your high school son do, but, he was like, oh, what if Phineas and Ferb just takes place over 2 summers? It can't, because during the final episode, they summarize everything they did in that summer, and during that summarization, they reference all, like, they go over pretty much everything that happened in the show. Meaning it all takes place in one summer. One summer. So yeah, again, when I came up with this idea, I really wanted to get it down to 104, but we're just so far off from 104. If someone, like, keep in mind, so I only watched the episodes I listed. If I didn't list an episode, to my memory, I didn't think, I'm holding a scalpel, whatever these things are called. I use it to scrape things off my 3D printer. To my memory, there is no other episode that could deduct stuff from us. But if I missed an episode that takes place during the night, if I missed a holiday episode somehow, comment. If you think of that, comment. And I'll probably pin it if it's only one. If not, I'll at least like all the comments that correct me. I want to see how low we can get this. Because I have a fear that I got them all. But I have hope that I, as a human, messed up and didn't get them all. And you all will be able to think of some Phineas and Ferb episode that can get us closer to that 104. That juicy 104. So yeah. If we get enough comments, if I missed enough, maybe I'll make a sequel to this. Man, 212. That's such a sad number. I'm gonna be completely real. When I figured out it was 212, I thought about just not uploading this video, but it was too late. It was already on the monthly upload calendar, and I had already watched a lot of Phineas and Ferb for it. Man, that's so unsatisfying. I wish I could have given a better ending to this video. Been like, we got it down to 109 days. If you guys can find out like 4 more episodes that don't count, we can do this. But no. 212. That number's gonna haunt me now. Anyway, I guess that's it. 212. That's how long Phineas and Ferb's summer was. Which I thought 104 was bad. 212 days of summer. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Me just talking about Phineas and Ferb. I want to do more Phineas and Ferb stuff. This was fun. Rewatching Phineas and Ferb, there were some jokes that like legitimately made me laugh. Phineas and Ferb was a good show. So yeah, see you Thursday, and then every Monday and Thursday after that for all of July. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all later. Goodbye!